Ooh, watching movies with subtitles in all directions is absolutely a superpower. That's how I learned a lot of Portuguese at the time, way back when, in other languages. But Jeff, you've got a good approach here too. It is like it's multimodal. The tough thing is it's multimodal, but it's also n equals one, and so I think everyone individually should like cast a wide net of all those things you're discussing, but then something ends up working better. Like for instance, I go in almost exclusively through the irregular verbs. That's just my thing. That's how I understand the structure of language, and it works well for me. And I know what phrases I need to learn in the beginning, and it doesn't take me long to get like passively functionally being able to speak, and then the rest of it comes along with what really makes people understand you, like slowing down and caring and like using your body language. It's just like hanging in the moment, pre-language.
I'm one such person. I'm not directly involved in being employed in the tech sector. You do ask the question there, which is an interesting one, whether or not tech, like what is being done at Apple, is beneficial for the whole of humanity. I want to push back against that for a moment, because if you say, if it's not, what can we do to change that? What can we do to change the fact that, well, if it's not beneficial to the whole of humanity, as if that's a problem? Of course it's not. There's very few products out there in the entire universe that are going to be beneficial for everyone, and that's a good thing. Sometimes we want specialized things. It just so happens that computers in general are beneficial to everyone, but it's a wonderful world that we exist in, that some people just don't like Apple products. They prefer PC, and vice versa. There are other people who don't mind either. But the point is, even if Apple products were geared towards a tiny subset of human beings, that wouldn't make it a bad thing. And it wouldn't be something we'd have to fix. We don't need all tech to be beneficial to everyone all the time. We just need people who want to buy the product. That's it. And if it's only 100 people who want to do that, it's just the elite of the elite, or 1 million people, or just 1 billion people out of the 7 billion people, that's fine too.
So I have a funny story, and hopefully this is the right room to share it in. But yesterday I took an improv class for the first time, and something that stood out to me, which I don't really know where else I could share this and that people would find interesting, but I think essentially like all of improv is based on shelling points, and like the performers being able to know each other's very well and also be able to communicate theirs very well. The subtitle of Naval's article is cooperating without communicating, and that's all you have to do the whole time. Like every time you're about to like do a scene, like you have to figure out like what you're going to say and like what direction you're going to go in without communicating beforehand. And it's like playing that game in Times Square over and over again, but like just with stories. And it was really cool, but I just thought that was interesting.
You merely adopted a debilitating ankle injury. I was born to it. Not really. I fell out of a plane to it. Sorry about your ankles, man. It's rough. Ankle especially, all of it. It's just the weight-bearing stuff is so hard over time. And then deal with it for a long time. Then you gotta unwind the whole coil after you're once you finally get the thing addressed. Anyway, happy Monday. Get your chat. Oh, dang it. Now I feel like I need to do this. Look at the chit before this, Matthias. That's my ankle, my left ankle. My minor injury.
Holy Jeebus, that is insane. Like, I can't believe that your foot or your ankle is deteriorating like that. Is that something that's going to get worse over time, or is it as bad as it's going to get now?
Yeah, to push back on this and to add to Brett's point, Silicon Valley doesn't need to make tech that's beneficial for the whole of humanity. It just needs to make tech that solves a particular problem that appeals to a certain group of people or an individual. TLDR just needs to be cool. I think the more tech products that come out that try to appeal to the greater whole of humanity, the less interesting it is. There are exceptions to this, of course, and Elon Musk's products are certainly one of them.
Hey, if you're addicted to your phone, in other words, if you're a human in 2023, it's understandable. There are some intriguing things on the wizard metal, especially on this app. But the reason I'm sending this is if you want to cut down on your screen time, go to settings, color filters, grayscale. It really does make it less addictive. And when you turn it off, you'll see why. Have a good day. All right, here's a hack for doing pull-ups. People probably know this, but if you don't, this is a bar, of course, put around it like this. And then the thicker the band, the easier it will be. You put your knee in it like this while you do the reps. I used to not even be able to come close to doing a single pull-up, but I did them with bands for a really long time. And now I can pump them out even with weight chained around my waist. It's so helpful at the beginning, for sure.
In my case, it was because my pull-up form was complete dog shit, but that changed when I saw that video I just linked. I used to struggle to be able to do only a few pull-ups, but now I'm comfortable in my form and the number of reps I can do. So posting it here in case it helps anyone else.
I will say there are fail videos of these hitting people in the face and in the crotch.
Hey Jeff, I actually also went from not being able to do even one pull-up actually to being able to do about 16 or 17 strict pull-ups. And what I used was this technique called greasing the groove, and that just meant I put a pull-up bar in my house and inside the house and not really outside it. That means whenever I crossed the pull-up bar, I had to do one. And one was something I could do. And this I carried on for about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, just one every time I walked through that. And working from home, that volume started going up. Slowly I went from 1 to, every time I cross you do 2, every time you cross you do 3 and 4, and you start feeling more and more comfortable. And as you keep doing this, suddenly your muscles are now used to that movement. And then I went out and I tried to do proper pull-ups in one go, and I was able to crank out about 5. So going to almost 1 to 5 was big for me. And then was mostly using a lot of these bands and training programs for pull-ups. So yeah, completely. And bands have really helped me too. Yeah. Someone once tweeted and asked this question, what is the one job that you can't outsource? And I actually think that answer for me is thinking. Thinking is really hard work, and people don't think as much as they think they do. Because we have this bias for action that's really good, but without meaningfully thinking about anything, all your actions could just mean nothing. And the lazy side of our brains help us avoid thinking by helping us borrowing narratives and borrowing conviction. This is the biggest mistake I've seen people make, and I know it very well because I made it too. I've also borrowed conviction from people who sound smart, or from people who are smart and believe in something, and I've just believed whatever they've said without questioning or without thinking about it for myself. So in conclusion, never outsource thinking. It will take a lot of energy, it will take a lot of effort, but it's worth it. Remember that you can only think a little bit, and this should not turn into an analysis paralysis, and you have to be the judge of when to stop thinking and at what point is your conviction enough for you to start doing something about whatever you're thinking about. And another thing to add here is that a lot of the thinking actually happens by doing. So there's a lot of nuance to this. My only point was that don't borrow conviction, don't borrow narratives without having thought about them first, especially if it requires a significant part of investment of your time, just on top of these borrowed convictions or narratives.
I put it a slightly different way, which is you can never outsource judgment, and therefore judgment is the single most important trait to develop. Now, you can, in a way, outsource judgment by you can say, okay, when it comes to physics, I've examined enough of this physicist's mindset and analysis and narrative, and I generally trust them to be honest. So although I can verify them on every conclusion, I won't, and I will generally follow their lead on physics. So that is an example of applying your judgment to outsource your judgment to somebody else who may actually be a domain expert. But that should not be done lazily and lightly, and one should always fact check the so-called experts with your own judgment. But yes, I believe that judgment is the single most important skill. It is a meta skill. Now, of course, can it be trained directly? Probably not. It probably is something that is more innate and developed more indirectly just by thinking about everything for yourself, as you have said. But ultimately, the output of the thinking and the true skill that you end up exercising to navigate through life is judgment. Abhi has a good room here where he is working on his own judgment. He calls it learning judgment, although of course it's just a general philosophy room with all the aphorisms, notes, summarizations, and philosophies that he has either developed or derived or copied for himself. But notice that he focuses on judgment. By the way, I don't think you can learn judgment just by reading Abhi's room or listening to it, because you have to experience and think for yourself. If you just outsource it to him, it's not going to work. Also, it doesn't work if you're just reading other people's aphorisms, including my tweets, because they're too meta level. It has to be applied in a specific way in real life, in the world, to yourself and to your own experience for you to properly absorb it. If you find an aphorism that speaks to you, the best way to remember it is to think back in your life, find an example where it applied, and replay the example, but now with the framework of the aphorism, and then it might stick.